Goragraganya gana gotra goloruharam Goranga guritama gopyara kolpa briksham Gopala gada ratidam Yati singha gora govinda deshi kavaram satatam namami Uttama Adama Kichuna Bachila Jachia Dile Kakola Kahe Premananda Himona Gauranga Hridaya Dadiya Bola Bhaja Gauranga Kaha Gauranga Laha Gaurangera Namare Jai Jana Gauranga Bhaje Se Mara Prana Re Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Yashaiva Padambuja Bhakti Labhya Prema-bhakti-candrika Parama Pumata Tasmai Jagan Mangala Mangalaya Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Madgavirapi Gopala Sri Kriyat Kripaya Jari Tadaiva Sambhaya Pitva Rishayustat Priya Janaha Shri Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Sasanatana Rupaka Gopala Raghunathapta Brajabala Bapahimam Vanchakalpatarubhischa Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadha, Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Brinda, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So I'd like to introduce everybody to a special guest today. You can see his little picture there. This is the face of Gora BRC. Mhm. His name's not actually Gora BRC, but his name is Viseshwar Gopal Prabhu. And maybe he'll give us his darshan. There he is. Hi, Krishna Prabhuji. Nice to have you with us today. So Viseshwar Gopal Prabhu is our project manager for Gora BRC in Puri. And he's a dear friend and been helping us in so many ways. And he was asking if he could come. I said, well, you can come, but you have to be a guest because we treat guests very special for us. So nice to have you with us today, Prabhuji. Thank you. Thank you, Krishna. So I'm going to go ahead and start. Let's recite this verse we have for Srila Narottam Das Thakur. Shri Krishna Nama Amrita Vaishi Vaktra Chandra Prabhadvasta Tamo Baraya Gauranga Deva Anucharaya Namo Namah Srila Narottamaya. Again and again I offer my obeisances unto Srila Narottam Das Thakur. He's indeed a true follower of Lord Gauranga Dev, the nectarian shower of the holy name of Krishna radiating from the moon of his mouth destroys the darkness of ignorance. So, as I mentioned in our last session, I'm going through a few different versions of Prema-bhakti-candrika, and Ishvara Prabhu in his edition breaks them up into different songs or chapters, and that's actually clear. Like Shri Guru Charana Padma is one song, and there's a number of other different songs, which are clearly songs. But it's not so clear, at least to me, that many of the later songs are separate, many of the later verses are separate songs. And in the Bengali books that I have, this next song, Ishwar Prabhu gives this as a sixth song, which he gives as topics of meditation for arousing Prem Bhakti. In the first verse, first stanza. In the Bengali versions I have, it's text number 60. So let's just go ahead with this. I'll put this on the board too. Yugala charana priti parama ananda tati prema moya parabande Krishna nama Radha nam upasana rasadam charane padiye paranande. In spiritual bliss, I will develop intense love for the youthful divine couple, Sri Sri Radha Krishna, and hear the glorious topics of their loving affairs. Worshipping and chanting the holy names of Radha Krishna is the abode of all transcendental mellows. I will fall at the lotus feet in ecstasy. Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur has commented in the translation, let my attachment for the lotus feet of Radha and Madhav be steady. By this process, one achieves transcendental happiness. The word paranande refers to the loving topics. That my mind be absorbed in the loving topics of Radha and Madhav by association with the devotees who are acquainted with the divine mellows of Sri Krishna. So we should understand the nature of Krishna's pastimes. They're not mundane. In the 33rd chapter, the 10th canto, it said, Anugrahaya bhaktana manusam dehamastita bhajate tadrisi kridaha yashrutvatat paro bhavet, that when Krishna, to show some mercy, Anugrahaya bhaktanam, to show some mercy to his devotees, manusam deham astita, he takes a form, a human-like form, manusha rup, manusha deha, and he comes and he does pastimes so that persons who are hearing about him, they'll become dedicated to him. So it's a very, very important thing. If we don't hear about the pastimes of Krishna, then what will be the point? But at the same time, I feel obliged to go on about this again. It's something I kind of sigh when I say this, because it's a little negative. I don't like to just be negative. I'd rather be positive. But we should also be straightforward. We want to be following strictly in the line of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, and our Srila Prabhupada. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati published many books, but they never published any books about Radha Krishna. They never published any books about Krishna Lila. It's not exactly true. In the Chaitanya Siksamrita, which is a book which begins by explaining things, why it's very pious to plant trees and to be an honest person and things, and why different religions have some benefit. It starts off from a very basic platform. And it goes from there. At one point, Bhaktivinoda speaks about Astakaliya Smarana in a much later chapter. And then he says, and here it is. And he gives the eightfold pastimes of Radha and Krishna. But up until that point, the book, aside from some Sanskrit quotes from the Bhagavatam, is all in Bengali. And then when he says, here's the Astakaliya Lila, all of a sudden it's all in Sanskrit. So it was something that they didn't print. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta didn't print. Srila Prabhupada printed Krishna book, and it was one of the first things that he printed. And he also printed Upadeshamrita. But Prabhupada was very strict about it. He said we should not print these things for the general public. Here's a letter from 1969 where Prabhupada wrote to Satsvarup Maharaj. He said, in the BTG, the Ras Lila episode cannot be published. We're writing on the activities of Krishna, and Ras Lila is one of the most important pastimes of his transcendental activities. Therefore, it must be published in the book. But it cannot be published in any public paper. That is the instruction of my Guru Maharaj. Actually, Ras Lila means to curb down the lusty propensities of the conditioned soul. Unfortunately, it acts differently on the conditioned soul if he's not prepared to understand what is Krishna. So do not try to print this. And Srila Prabhupada was really, really heavy. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta also, about presenting these kind of things. especially in public, as Prabhupada was saying here. But at the same time, this is our tradition in Gaudiya Vaishnavism, and it's the most important thing. One of the first things I got an opportunity to serve Lila Purushottam with Prabhu with some years ago when we first visited him there in Czech Republic. He asked me if I would speak something about the Ramananda Samvad, the conversation between Ramananda Roy and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And so we gave kind of a quick summary of that over a week. And I'd like to present you, it's a very important discussion. It's kind of the essence of Gaudiya Vaishnavism. In text 255, Mahaprabhu asked Shravana Madhye Jivera Kun Shrestha Shravan. What's the best thing for people to hear, which is the best for all living entities? And Roy Ramananda replies, Radha Krishna Prema Keli Karna Rasayana. That the Radha Krishna Prema Keli, or means Keli means very intimate, the very intimate pastimes of Radha and Krishna, Karna Rasayana. This is the thing which is going to be the Rasayana. Rasayana in Ayurvedic medicine is something which gives you life, gives you inspiration here. This is Karna Rasayana. This is something which is going to go in the ear, and it's going to be the most pleasing, the most beneficial for our ear to hear about Radha and Krishna. And at the end of that chapter, of Madhya Lila chapter 8, in Ramananda Roy's conversation with Mahaprabhu, it's concluded, Rasa Tattva Jnana Hoya Ihara Shravani, Prema Bhakti Hoya Radha Krishna Charani. And Prabhupada translates, by hearing the talks of Ramananda Roy and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, one becomes enlightened with the transcendental knowledge of the mellows of Radha and Krishna's pastimes. Thus, one can develop unalloyed love for the lotus feet of Radha and Krishna. That's pretty important. This is the essence of Gaudiya Vaishnavism. But Srila Prabhupada didn't want us to speak these things in public. We should understand, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Janma karma chame dibyam evam yoveti tattvataha, that if someone understands my pastimes in tattva, my janma, my karma, my birth, and my activities, then chakta deham punarjanma, they won't take birth again. They'll get liberation. So it's the essence of everything. We have to hear about Radha Krishna. What are we doing if we don't hear about Radha Krishna? But it's not something which should be spread in public. And I'm a little shy speaking about it on this forum today. My Guru Maharaj, I remember, I think I mentioned this in our last session. At least I mentioned this a few times, I think, recently in New Brajadam, that I remember before at least one or two of his classes, he told us, he said, I'm not qualified, you're not qualified to hear this, and I'm not qualified to speak it. And his humility, he said, but if I don't speak this, then he said, I must speak this, I have to. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, as we often comment, at Radhakund on one occasion, he told the devotees there, he said that, Hare Krishna, Lila-katha, Prabhu, nice to see you. Hare Krishna. He said that you should know such things exist. And studying what Srila Prabhupada said, for example, in the book Perfect Questions, Perfect Answers, which was a conversation with a non-devotee, Bob Cohen, who would come to visit Srila Prabhupada and interview him about something. Prabhupada was speaking to him at one point about how Krishna is such a rascal, and he knocks Radharani to the ground and is kissing her and grabbing her and things. And it was a very, very intimate thing that Srila Prabhupada was speaking to that brand new person. So how do we reconcile that with these other statements where Prabhupada is very strictly saying, no, these things shouldn't be done? Well, Prabhupada was saying that these things shouldn't be spoken in public. But in private, he did. And in a private assembly amongst the devotees in Los Angeles on one occasion, on the day of the Ras Lila, he was asked, what is the meaning of Ras Lila? Can you speak it to us? And Srila Prabhupada said, that's a very high thing. It's very confidential. I can't speak that. And then he began to speak about Ras Lila. the essence of it in a kind of a summary kind of way. So what's important is that we speak it in a proper assembly. I'd like to say a few things before we go much further about adhikar for rasa-katha. In Chaitanya Siksamrita, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says very clearly, Sajati yasya snigdasada gosti vyatita rasalapa koribinna. And for those of you who are familiar with this verse from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Sajati yasya snigdasada snigdasatovare, you can see that it appears that he's referring indirectly perhaps to that verse. Sujati Yasya Snigda Sadhu Sangasatovare. Rupa Goswami is describing how we should associate with persons who are Sujatiya, who are literally from the same caste, and who are Snigda, who are affectionate to us, and who are more advanced in us, and we should hear from them. So here he's speaking about Rasalapa Koribin, who we should speak, topics of rasa, topics of the mellows of Radha and Krishna. And he says that they should be discussed with persons who are Swajati Asya, who are intimate to us, who are from the same background as us, and in a sadgosti, in an intimate, qualified assembly amongst devotees who are snigda, who are affectionate. Vyatita rasalapa koribena. And if you don't have that situation, then don't speak that. Bhaktivinoda Thakur makes the same point in a number of different places. In Chaitanya Siksamrita, in the Chaitanya Mat edition, let's see, he's also stated, Jada Bada Jiva Krishna Lila Shravane Anadikari. Very, very simple, very direct thing. That the Jada Bada Jiva, the conditioned soul, Krishna Lila Shravane Anadikari, has no qualification to hear Krishna's pastimes. But then Bhaktivinoda Thakur in Chaitanya Siksamrita, in the same section, the sixth Varsha, he goes on to speak about Krishna's pastimes. But he does it, he speaks about it, how the different demons represent different obstacles to our entrance into Vrindavan. And he explains it from that perspective. Again, in the Prema-bhakti-candrika, I'm reading from a translation right now. This is from Pundarik Vidyanidhi Prabhu's translation. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, regarding Swakiya and Parakiya, these are confidential truths which should be privately learned at the feet of one's spiritual master. If I explain this topic in the assembly, it could be harmful for unqualified devotees. Let's see. I'll put this on the board too. If I explain this topic in the assembly, it could be harmful for unqualified devotees. Higher truths cannot be attained unless one is situated on a higher platform. Just as higher knowledge gradually arises in all scientific literature, likewise confidential truths are attained in devotional literatures by proper qualification. I remember learning piano as a young boy for a little bit. I didn't really learn piano, but I had some lessons. And my teacher had told me that she was teaching a few different people, and she charged less money for someone who didn't know how to play the piano, who'd never played. She charged more money for someone who knew how to play, because she explained she had to unteach them. And so in a similar way, our approach to knowledge sometimes is our greatest obstacle that we have. We think we've gone to the university, we studied, we understand things, and we consider in an empiric kind of way that I'm going to understand something through reading. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur here is stating very, very clearly that no, that this thing is going to come when you attain a higher platform. It's not just attained just by reading it. And there's many different statements. We wrote some article about that some years ago, which I think some of you are familiar with, called From the Lips, which we put as an appendix in Hari Prashna. So we should understand these things in tattva. Janma karma chame divyam evam yobeti tattvataha chakra deham puna janma naiti mamiti sarjana. When we understand the nature of Krishna's pastimes in tattva, then we can make proper advancement. Then we won't have to take birth again in this material world. In Mathura Meets Vrindavan in chapter 5, my Guru Maharaj speaks something about this subject matter. He says, one who has come to this bhajan pata, the path of bhajan, should always remember three things. The first is tattva, fundamental principles. The second is tatya, reality. And the third is lila-katha, the significance of Krishna's pastimes. The first is tattva, sarup, upalabdhi. One should understand things in tattva. And he quotes this verse, Janma karma chame divyam. Krishna has repeatedly stated this in the Gita. Natu mama bejanati tattva chivanti te. Those who don't recognize my transcendental nature will fall down. Tato mam tattato gyatva vishate taranantaram. And when by devotion someone understands me, then he can enter into the kingdom of God. Guru Maharaj goes on. Krishna says, my birth, my appearance, and my activities are not material. They're transcendental, spiritual. One who understands in tattva and truth, then that will be his last birth here. After quitting this body, he'll definitely come to me. He'll never come back again. No rebirth, no fall down. This verse from the 4th chapter of Bhagavad Gita describes how we should understand Krishna and tattva. The second thing is tatya. Tatya means what is the real fact. The third thing is lila-katha, what is the purport of a particular lila pastime. These three things should be kept in mind. He says that all the leelas of Krishna are based on tattva. If one understands tattva, then one will relish the mellow. Otherwise, one cannot relish. The leelas of Krishna are not fictitious stories like a story told by one's grandmother. Aima kahani. Rasesha Gopal, I think that's an Oriya saying, isn't it? Any comment? Rasesha
Yes,
Gopal.
Prabhuji. Yes,
Yeah.
Prabhuji.
You've heard that before?
Yeah, yeah.
Aima. Okay.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yeah, the grandmother's story. Grandmothers tell stories to their grandchildren. There's one such grandmother's story told in Orissa. He tells this story, which is actually not a very transcendental story. All my grandchildren, in the forest, there was one old demoness. And once upon a time, the king's son, a very handsome young prince, went to that forest. When the old demoness saw him, she thought, oh, a very nice, handsome young prince. I want to enjoy with him. Demons know witchcraft, and they can also change their form. So that demoness was very old, haggard, and ugly, made herself appear as a very beautiful young princess. The young prince became attracted and attached. The demoness thought, now the prince is in my clutches. And by her witchcraft, she turned him into a goat and bound him up. Rama said, this is the kind of story that grandmothers tell to their children. Krishna Lila stories are not like that. They're based on tattva. They're based on nectarian mellow, bhakti ras. So we should understand things in terms of tattva. Tatya means the truth. It means the actual state of affairs or reality. And tattva means something which is a principle, the reality, the truth. The word tatya and tattva have some similarity. Tatya means the fact or the reality. Tatparja means the intention or the purpose. In other words, what was the intention of the Lord in the pastime? What was the intention of the Acharya who wrote that pastime? What is the significance of that pastime? Or tattva means a fundamental truth or a principle, the mystery, the secret of it. The Bhagavatam also describes the word tatya. Tatyavadina is a famous line from the 8th canto. Someone who's competent to speak the truth because they understand tatya. Tattva means like the elements of something like earth, water, fire, air, ether. Tatya, on the other hand, means a fact which can be proved by evidence. So in Sanskrit, words can have at least 14 different meanings or applications, and some of them are primary and some of them are secondary. So Lila Tattva refers to principles that apply in all circumstances to lila or pastimes. And tatya refers to a particular instance of that principle, whereas tatparja gives the significance of the ultimate purpose of it. So we should understand these three things, tattva, tatya, and tatparja, in terms of lila. Now, Upadeshamrita, in the 8th verse, Srila Rupa Goswami describes it, Tanama Rupa Charitari Sukirtananu Smityo Kramena Rasana Manasi Niyoja Tishtan Vajay Tadanuragi Jananugami Kalamna Yadakilam Ityupadesha Saram. He says this is Utyupadesha Saram. When he says this is Upadesha Saram, we should pick up our ears and listen, because the name of the book is Upadeshamrita. Amrita means the essence or the condensed mellow of this Upadesha, this instruction. And now in the 8th verse, he says, this is Upadesha Sara. This is the essence of all instructions. And he says that we should, the essence of all this advice, Tanama Rupa Charitari Sukirtanana, that we should do Sankirtan, we should chant Krishna's name and hear about his charita, his pastimes and different things. That's a very important thing. And he says Kramena. He uses the word krama. Krama means a sequence or some gradual thing. Prabhupada in his purport, let's go ahead and read from the purport. Just a little sentence or two from it. He says, in the neophyte stage, one should always engage in hearing Krishna Katha. This is called Shravana Dasa, the stage of hearing. By constantly hearing the transcendental holy name of Krishna and hearing of his transcendental form, qualities, and pastimes, one can attain to the stage of acceptance called Varana Dasa. Varana means to accept. And what does the stage of acceptance mean? Well, I'll elaborate a little more on that in a moment, but it means that when we accept this subject matter, that we have some faith in it. Prabhupada goes on, when one attains this stage, he becomes attached to hearing Krishna Katha. When one is able to chant in ecstasy, he attains the stage of Smaranavasta, the stage of remembering, which, as Srila Prabhupada says, is a natural thing. In the Jaiva Dharma, Bhaktivinoda Thakur speaks about these 5 different stages of hearing. Let's look at them here real quick. Shavana Dasa, Varna Dasa, Smarana Dasa, Bhavana Panadasa or Apana Dasa, and Prema Sampati Dasa. Shavana Dasa is the stage that we're hearing. And it's such a very, very important thing that we hear. We have these Navavidi Bhakti, this 9-fold process of devotion, and begins with hearing. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam. From hearing, then we do Kirtan. And what kind of kirtan do? We do kirtan of what we've heard. We speak, we repeat what we've heard. That's what we're doing today. My Grandmaja told me you should repeat what your guru said and what previous acharyas have said. From that kirtan comes Vishnu Smaranam, comes a platform where naturally we remember the Lord. So first it is to hear, and then Varna Dasa, we accept what's being said. We have some faith in what's being said. And the symptom of our faith is that we repeat that thing. And then comes Vishnu Smarana, Smarana Dasa, the stage of natural remembrance. We're just now getting ready to print our latest Bindu magazine, which I really hope I can find time to finish doing the design for today, or maybe tomorrow, which is about the importance of we're calling it bhakti and independent thinking. And I've written an essay at the end of it, short essay, where we also speak something about these 3 things, abhyasa, manana, and smarana, which are summarized from summary points from Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur's commentary on the 12th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. First of all is abhyasa. Krishna says in the Gita, abhyasa yoga yuktanam, that you should practice this form of yoga. And we may practice in kind of a mindless way. And oftentimes, maybe you've heard me speak about this, the new devotee is practicing. He's sweeping the temple. And he's doing it in a mindless way. Maybe he's thinking of a favorite song that he had before he joined or something. But he's sweeping. And after some time, the nature of sweeping is the room becomes clean. And after some abhyasa or practice, when the heart becomes more clean, then comes manana. And then at that point, the person begins to contemplate, why am I doing this? And his mind is peaceful enough to understand what it is that I'm doing. And from that platform, a manana then can come smart. When we begin to practice the same thing, abhyasa, but manana, we're practicing with manana, we're thinking about what we're doing, we're changing gears into a much higher speed. And then finally comes smarana. And smarana is commentated sometimes means marana. Remembrance means death. That when we've come to the point of marana, we've given up attachment for everything material, then naturally remembrance will come. And when we practice for some time on that platform of smarana dasa, then bhava panade dasa, or apana dasa, apana means to attain something, we attain the platform of bhav. We have some natural ecstasy. And then from that, practicing on that platform, prema sampati dasa, we attain the platform of Krishna prema, which is our goal. So hearing is such an important thing. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in Jaiva Dharma, he speaks about these 5 things in chapter 40. And he goes on to explain, there's a conversation between Vijay and his guru. And Vijay asks him, he says that there are certain persons that you've spoke about who are bahirmukh. They're antarmukh and bahirmukh. Antarmukh means someone who's internal, and bahirmukh means someone external. And he says there's some bahirmukh janas who are also hearing Krishna katha sometimes. That may sound familiar. It sounds familiar to me. What kind of shravan or hearing is that? And Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains in it, there's a huge difference between someone who's bahirmukh, who's always attracted by the external material nature, and someone who's antarmukh. An antarmukh jana is someone who's looking internally. He's looking for the Lord. And for the bahirmukh person, they may, by some good fortune, get to hear about Krishna, but it's not because they have shraddha, they have faith, and they're applying that. So that hearing is Bhakti-mukhi Sukriti, Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains. They're getting some benefit, they're hearing something, but they don't really understand it. And Jiva Goswami in Bhakti Sandarbha, he explains that there's agyata and gyata Sukriti. Agyata Sukriti means something which is unknowingly done. And he gives some examples. He says that once he quotes the Vishnu Dharmota Purana, how once during Kartik, someone had lit a lamp for the deity of Vishnu, Krishna in a temple, and there was a mouse living in the temple. And the mouse went to eat the ghee from the ghee lamp. And when the mouse went there and started eating the ghee, because there was a flame there, his whiskers caught on fire, and the mouse died. And because of that, that mouse went to Prapanchika Vaikunta, which, for those of you who like to have controversial discussions, that's a Vaikunta place where we can attain, where we can fall down. It's the only place where fall downs occur. It's Prapanchika. It's something within this material world. It's also known as Dhruva Lok. It's mentioned in the 8th canto of the Bhagavatam and some different Puranas. If some jiva soul does some kind of bhakti at the time of leaving their body, but it's agyata, it's done unknowingly, then they can attain that prapanchika vaikunta. And they stay there for some time and they associate with the Lord. But after some time, again, they take birth. And in the Vishnu Dharmota Purana, it's described that mouse then took birth as a king. But he was a little bit, he remembered his previous birth, and he became very attached to lighting lamps and offering them to the Lord. And in his next life, then, he performed Gyata Sukriti. Previously, as a mouse, he was doing Agyata, and now he was doing Gyata. So Gyata Sukriti means it's some highest benefit, but it's done knowingly. And that Gyata Sukriti leads to bhakti. Agyata Sukriti is the very beginning. It also leads to bhakti, but it takes more time. Gyata Sukriti is in between Agyata and direct bhakti. So when someone performs Gyata Sukriti, then they get some Shraddha if they hear from the proper person. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he says, this is a required condition for hearing at Shravana Dasa. When we speak about these 5 different types, 5 different stages of hearing, the Shravana Dasa, what's required is to have some faith in Guru. And then he says that Shravana Dasa is 2 types, Krama, Sudha Shravana Dasa, and Kramahina Shravana Dasa. Krama Sudha means purely or properly hearing. Krama Sudha Shravana Dasa, they're hearing in a proper sequence. Kramahina Shravana Dasa, Hina means without, they're hearing in a haphazard way. And so he explains then that Kramahina Shravana Dasa means that they're hearing about the pastimes of Krishna in an improper sequence. Sometimes some persons want to hear about the Ras Lila immediately, before they understand very much about Radha Krishna, before they've understood something about the nature, the lila-katha of Krishna's Janma Lila, his birth and his activities. And they want to hear about the Ras Lila right away. That's Kramahina Shravana Dasa. That's an improper sequence. And he says, aside from that, Kramahina Shravana Dasa means that they're hearing without determination, they're hearing from an improper person. And Kramahina Shravana Dasa, Bhaktivinoda says, it doesn't include hearing about Krishna's pastimes. What is it? In the 3rd canto of the Bhagavatam, Lord Kapila Dev, he says, Satam prasanga mama virya samvedo. We sometimes quote this verse, very important verse. Satam prasanga mama virya samvedo. That hearing from a sadhu, mama virya samvedo, my pastimes, that's the Rasayana Katha. That's the medicine, which is being spoken of by Narottam Das Thakur. That's the medicine for our ears. But Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in Sarita Darshan's commentary on that verse, he asks the question, what is the necessity of the prefix pra before the word sat? In other words, what's the difference between satsanga and prasatsanga? And he says, first of all, what is satsanga? Satsanga means that I'm doing pious things. I take care of my family. I go to the temple. I give donations. I follow the temple president. I am an honest person. I chant japa. All those things are satsanga. They're associating with sadhus, and it's a good thing. But what is prasanga? Prasanga means something more. And Vishwanath explains that it means directly hearing about the pastimes of Krishna. That's needed. If you study Srila Prabhupada's lectures, it's very interesting. You'll find that in the early days, in like 1966, 67, in New York, in 22nd Avenue, when he's speaking to a bunch of young persons, to give an example of where they were at. And after one lecture, someone once challenged Srila Prabhupada. He said, Swamiji, you say that you can't attain this highest understanding, highest consciousness by taking LSD. But have you taken LSD? Do you know? And it was this challenging question they asked Srila Prabhupada. And Prabhupada replied, no, I've not taken LSD, but my disciples have. And they can comment. So that says something to you about their qualification. But Srila Prabhupada, if you study those very early lectures, there's a marked difference in them, where Prabhupada was speaking quite often about Vrindavan and some things about Radha and Krishna. So that's an important thing. Kramasuddha Shravana Dasa, Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains, is when we hear in a proper sequence, and we hear with some resolute determination from a right person, and that focused hearing, that's conducive to the actual evolution, the actual presentation of rasa. In this manner, he says, you hear the Nitya Lila of the Asakali Lila in the Naimitic Lila, such as the birth of Krishna, that's Kramasuddha Shravana Dasa. We start with hearing about the birth of Krishna and what that means. This lila-tat-parja. We hear tattva, tatya, and lila-tat-parja. And he says that on the path of bhajan, this constant engagement, not just occasional, but constant engagement in krama sutta shravana is essential for rasa to appear. Otherwise, it won't appear. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur, then he quotes this verse from the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam, that Vikriditam Vajavadu Biridam Cha Vishnu, Shadan Vito Nasuniyad Atavana Yed Yaha, that we should hear this pastimes, and by hearing these pastimes, this Vikriditam, this sporting pastimes of Krishna and the Brajavadus, the young married ladies of Vrindavan, and if we hear that Shadan Vito, we hear that with some faith in a regular way, then definitely we'll become sober, and bhaktim param will attain the topmost bhakti. Hridrogam apahainotya chicharena dira. Very quickly, and the word ashu is used. Ashu indicates that very quickly the disease in the heart will be driven away. But it has to be done properly. It's not that Srila Prabhupada forbade hearing about Krishna. That's a gross misunderstanding that devotees sometimes have. I'd like to show you an excerpt from a letter that Prabhupada wrote to a very young devotee in 1969, Kapila Dev. Prabhupada said, renunciation is required, but when one makes further progress after renunciation towards spiritual life and enters into the pastimes of Krishna, then things become perfect. Renunciation is required. And that's the first thing. It's not that it's not required, but after one makes further progress from renunciation, in the his commentary on Upadeshamrita, Bhaktivinoda Thakur raises an interesting question. The first verse of Upadeshamrita, Vacha Vegam, Manasakroda Vegam, how one should control the mind and the senses. Bhaktivinoda Thakur raises a question: what has this got to do with bhakti? And Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, actually, it's not bhakti. That first verse of Upadeshamrita. He says, but this is the doorway to bhakti. Unless you go through the doorway, you can't enter into the temple. And unless we become renounced, unless we give up our attachment to sense gratification, then we can't really begin to make advancement. But our purpose is not just being the International Society for Four Regulated Principles. We don't care about that. On one occasion in London, Srila Prabhupada was told by one of his disciples that Prabhupada, is the London Vegetarian Society wants you to come and speak. And Prabhupada says, well, do they want to hear about Krishna or do they want to hear about vegetarianism? And they said, well, Prabhupada, I think they want to hear about vegetarianism. And Prabhupada said, what's the benefit of that? The rabbits are also vegetarian. We don't care for that. And Prabhupada made that point a number of different times. I've collected some statements like that. There's one letter Prabhupada wrote to one of the, Roy Ram it was, who was editing the Back to Godhead magazine. Roy Ram, I think it sounded like he had printed some pictures of cow slaughter. Sometimes the vegans do that. They make videos and they show you what actually goes on in the slaughterhouse. It's a very horrible thing. And so that was his idea, that we'll show these pictures and it'll disgust people and freak them out so much that they won't be attracted to killing the cows. But then Srila Prabhupada was very upset with him about that. And he said, no, we don't print pictures of these things. No, we don't print pictures of cow slaughter any more than we print pictures of illicit sex. He said, our purpose is something positive. And just as Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said in that lecture on Radhakun that I was mentioning, he said that our purpose is not anartha nibritti, it's artha prabritti. Our purpose is not to become free from material desires. Our purpose is to develop the proper desire. But as long as we're very attached to material sense gratification, we can't really understand these things. At the same point, if we have, by this Vikriti Tam verse, it indicates that someone has some bad things in the heart. And the solution, if they have some bad things in the heart, this hridrogam, this disease of the heart, this disease of lust, then they should hear. But they should hear Kamasuda Shravana Dasa. They should hear in a proper way from someone they have faith in, and they should hear from Shastra. They should hear from our acharyas. And by doing that, then very naturally, Bhaktim Param will attain the topmost bhakti. Dira will become dira, will become fixed, will give up all those material desires and things by hearing that. So, as my grandma sometimes said, your only qualification is your disqualification. To have a disqualification doesn't mean that we can't practice bhakti. Sometimes devotees, they think like that. Oh, there's so many offenses to the holy name. So better you don't chant the holy name, better you chant the name of the guru, or you just do some vanashram dharma, you do something pious, because we can't really chant Prabhu. But that's not what Srila Vyasadeva describes in the Padma Purana when he speaks about the 10 offenses. He says there that namaparada yuktanam, you may be doing namaparada yuktanam namanyeva harantyagam, but you'll give up that namaparada if you keep chanting. So we should hear Radha Krishna Lila, but we should hear Kamasuda Shravana Dasa in the proper way from a source we have faith in a proper sequence. And so we're going through this Prema-bhakti-candrika of Narottam Das Thakur. And the first chapters we're hearing about the importance of Guru, the importance of the Vaishnavas, the importance in particular of Rupa and Sanatana Goswami, and the importance of hearing. And we're going along. And now we're coming to this point where our goal is to hear about Radha Krishna. Now, we may still be in our practical position, we may be only ready to hear about the early chapters. And sometimes devotees, they just stick to that. I remember giving a class once in the Delhi area in India. And after the class, one of the new devotees, who's a congregation devotee, actually, he was part of IYF, the ISKCON Youth Forum, came to me with an interesting question. He said, Prabhuji, is it okay if I read Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita? And I said, what kind of question is that? Of course you can read Prabhupada's Gita. And he said, well, my counselors told me I shouldn't. And I said, whoa. I don't, because his counselor knows him better than I do. I'm just a visiting person there. I don't like to go in some place and start saying something different than their guides. I said, well, why is he saying that? Of course we should read Bhagavad Gita. We're distributing Bhagavad Gita. And he said, well, before we read Bhagavad Gita, he says that we should study all of Prabhupada's smaller books. And I said, okay, that's all right. If you want to study a certain sequence, you can read first, through Easy Journey to Other Planets and these different books, and eventually come to Bhagavad Gita. That's okay, but you should read Bhagavad Gita also. And what I find oftentimes is, as we mentioned previously, one temple where they have a policy: no one's allowed to quote any acharyas, no one's allowed to quote any shastras other than Srila Prabhupada's books. And when they told me that, I said, that's okay. That's wonderful. I love to hear from Prabhupada's books, as long as they're quoting from Prabhupada's books. But if they're going to also quote from a movie that they saw or something from the newspaper, I'd rather hear from our previous acharyas. Thank you very much. And Srila Prabhupada says we should hear from our previous acharyas. So I want to just look at a couple comments here. Jai Gaur, in Vaikuntha, not even the leaves fall pretty much. Gauni Tai Prabhu, Prapanchika Vaikuntha is another thing. That's not the same. When someone, Jiva Goswami makes this clear in the Sandarbhas, that someone who has some agyata sukriti, like that mouse who leaves his body by lighting a lamp for the Lord, they go to Prapanchika Vaikuntha. They go someplace there with the Lord. And then they come back and then they perform Gyata Sukriti. It's still Sukriti if they're not doing it under the guidance of Guru, being authorized by Guru. But now it's Gyata Sukriti. They're doing it in a knowledgeable way, and that leads to Bhakti. And from that Bhakti, they'll attain the spiritual from which no one falls down again. Gornitai Prabhu has commented, what is the sign of the test that I understood the first topic, the importance of guru, and I imbibed it properly into my life, my dealings with others, etc.? Well, when we understand we have firm faith in guru, we can understand that we're at the proper stage to hear Radha Krishna Lila, as Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, what is it? Jadabada Jiva Krishna Lila Shravani Anadikar. That if we're conditioned, if we still have lusty desires, that means we don't have adhikar to hear Radha Krishna Lila. And that's okay, no problem. Doesn't mean that we can never hear about Radha Krishna. We are the Hare Krishna movement. We should hear something about Krishna. We should know that such things exist. But it means that I'm not going to spend all my time absorbed in reading Krishna Bhavanamrita, Govinda Lilamrita, or such books. But I'm also going to read Bhagavad Gita and maybe Easy Journey to Other Planets and some other books, because I need also to build up my foundation for that. Jaigor has commented, another secret of success is that when one is very much sexually disturbed, he should think of Krishna's pastimes with the gopis. This is Prabhupada's letter to Hayagriva. Think of Krishna's pastimes with the gopis, and he'll forget his sex urge. To think of Krishna's pastimes with the gopis, but not try to imitate. Nilamada Prabhu comments, must that Sukriti be directed toward Krishna or just general pious activity? Well, if it's a general pious activity, then they're going to get a general pious result. If they're, for example, they're practicing Varnashram Dharma, that's a very wonderful thing. Varnashram Dharma is a very pious thing, and they're going to get some general result. And they may then, if they achieve perfection, and that they may take birth as a Brahmin or something. But if they're practicing Bhakti Umukhi Sakriti, they're hearing about Krishna, then that they'll at least get some sadhu sangha, like a Jamil. Jamil didn't go directly back to Godhead, but a Jamil got some Sukriti. So in this verse that we're reading today from Narottam Das Thakur, let's look at it again. He says, Jugalo Charana Priti, that I want to develop my love for the lotus feet of Radha and Krishna. That's Parama Ananda Tati. That attachment to them is Paramananda. It's the topmost happiness. Rati Prema Moya Parabhande. And so I do that by hearing this pastimes of Radha and Krishna, Parabhande, the topics of Radha and Krishna. And then he mentions Krishna Nama, Radha Nama, Upasana, Rasadam, that what is my Upasana? What is my method of worship? Krishna Nam, Radha Nam. I'm chanting the names of Radha and Krishna. And that's Rasadam, that's full of all different mellows. And by chanting the names of Krishna and Radharani, as we've gone through so many different times in different sessions, including our last session, that hearing and chanting will give us credit, will give us qualification. That chanting Harinama, Harinama, Harinama Eva Kevalam gives us everything. In his Mangalacharan in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, Sanatana Goswami describes exactly that Jayati Jayati Nama Nanda Rupam Murari, all glories to the holy name of Murari, which is the very embodiment of Ananda. Viramita Nija Dharma Dhyana Pujadi Yatnam. That holy name makes me give up my Vanashram Dharma, my Nija Dharma, my Dhyana, my meditation, puja, adi, doing worship, etc. It makes me give up all those things. I simply take shelter of the holy name. And as Bhaktivinoda Thakur says in Harinam Chintamani, Name prasvatito hai rupa guna karma. From the holy name blossoms naturally Krishna's rup, his form. By chanting the holy name, my Guru Maharaj says in one place that this is a symptom that you're chanting Sudanam. The symptom, you know you're chanting Sudanam when you start chanting and you see Krishna's form. And then you know, I'm chanting Sudanam. And that means I have some qualification. I've come to the point, at least of Varna Dasa. I've accepted. Name prasvatita hoy rupa guna. Then I understand, I see realize the qualities of Krishna. And then karma means lila. I see the pastimes of Krishna. It's all packed up in the holy name. And our process, we also read and hear something about Radha Krishna Lila, as Narottam Das Thakur is telling us in this verse today that we should hear. It's a very, very important thing we should hear about the pastimes of Radha and Krishna. Rati prema moya parabande. Krishna nama, Radha nama, pasana rasadam. So we should hear something about it. And even at this platform, even to this brand new person in Mayapur that Prabhupada met, who was not a devotee, in Perfect Questions, Perfect Answers, Prabhupada spoke something about it. So I want to speak something today, a little bit to you about Radha Krishna Lila. This whole talk we've had so far has been an introduction to this. This is from a book which we've been translating little by little, some parts. It's chapter 18 of a book called Radha Madhava Doya by a devotee named Raghunandan Das. And for those of you who follow the Bindu, we printed some of his songs from Gauranga Champu and Chandu Manjari and a few other things. He was a genius in Sanskrit, a genius poet. He was born in a line of Lord Nityananda Prabhu in the 1700s, and he was very, very famous for his literature. And that's what's described in the Gaudiya Vaishnava Abhidhan about him. Otherwise, I really don't know much about him. But I'd like to tell you a story that he tells in this book, Radha Madhava Doya, in chapter 18. Kahila yogini vesha, Krishna jati laya, nahi dibe manapida tumahi radhaya. One day, Yogini Vesha Krishna dressed himself up like a female yogini. I find it very interesting. We hear about Purnamasi, who was wearing saffron colors. She was a yogini. So, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur also in some of his writings mentions, he said sometimes ladies take sannyas. Prabhupada said there's no question ladies taking sannyas, but Bhaktivinoda Thakur says sometimes. Right? And in Krishna Lila, we hear sometimes about this. So Krishna, one time, he took on the dress of a yogini, a female ascetic, and he went to Jatila, Radharani's so-called mother-in-law, and told her, Nahi dibe manapida tumahirada. Don't trouble Radharani. Right? But still, Radharani wasn't allowing, at that time, Jatila wasn't allowing Radharani to go to worship Suryadeva in the forest. And that was a way that Radha and Krishna would meet. So they were very unhappy. Knowing that, Purnamasi then went to meet Jatila. And when Jatila saw her, she bowed down to her. And then Jatila started preaching to her. And said, Purnamasi started preaching. And she told Jatila that you haven't heard that all the old ladies of Braj, they're sending their daughter-in-laws to Santanu Kund. There's many different sages there. Bigrari Rishi and others are doing a yagya there. And so these gopis, these young ladies, they'll go there and they bring ghee and different things for the yagya. And when they bring those things, and the sages, they give their ashirabad, and along with their ashirabad, they give them some jewelry, some valuable ornaments and things. I find this very interesting point that many times we see that sadhus, they happily accept donations and they give their ashirabad. But here also it's described they give some valuable ornaments sometimes. It's not every time, but in this particular case. So Purnamasi was telling Jatila that this is what's going on, and everybody's doing this, only you're not doing it. And you have such a nice son, Abhimanyu. So if you want to get some ashirabad, some blessing for your son, then you should send your daughter-in-law Radharani there. This Muni is given this benediction that whoever collects ghee for him, they'll be always protected physically. So when Jatila heard that, she became very happy. This is very good. She thought, we'll get some money. We'll get some valuable jewels and things. So Jatila gave up her reservations, and then she folded her hands and she told Purnamati, you're Bhagavati, and you're very respected by us. You're always thinking of our well-being. And so today, following your advice, I'm going to send Radharani, my daughter-in-law, to that place. I have to do that. And so she sent a maidservant to call for Radharani, who along with the Lita and Vishaka and some other gopis came, and they all bowed down to Jatila. And then with affection, Jatila told them that Purnamasi said that if we bring some ghee and different things in the sages, they'll give some ashirabad, some blessings, along with some valuable ornaments. So I want you to go there and you take some ghee and things, and when you go there, you ask for the well-being of your husband, Abhimanyu, and you ask that you can have children. Because that's a big thing in Vedic culture. Everybody should have a child. In Western culture, that's not always appreciated so much. Jatila, she's following that kind of culture, but Radharani didn't have any children. Actually, there's a book in Oriya, in the Oriya version of the Mahabharata. Maybe Seshwar Gopal Prabhu remembers the name of the author. It slips my mind right now. But he says some things in there that we don't appreciate very much. One of which is that Radharani had a child, a son, with Krishna. And then that's a whole nother thing. Anyway, so when Radharani heard that from Jatila, she became very happy. And they took some ghee, and along with Lalita and the other Sakis, they went to that place. And they collected some different jewelries and gems and things, and they brought them back to Jatila. And Jatila was very, very happy. And so from that day on, then she stopped forbidding Radharani to go to the forest. So now Krishna, one day, he's thinking that Radharani, she's coming to the bank of the Jamuna to go to the Yagyastali. So I'm going to sit here on the bank with a boat, and on the pretext of bringing them over the river, I'm going to have some fun. And so Krishna was sitting there with the boat, and then Radharani came with her Sakis. And Radharani, she was telling Lalita, she said, just see, the rivers become very rough, and there's a lot of wind, and there's black clouds everywhere, and thunder and lightning. How are we going to get to the other bank? The river's so rough, it's very frightening. And then Radharani said, maybe we should go to the Jamuna and pour some ghee into the Jamuna. Then she'll be happy and she'll become gentle. And Lalita just started laughing. And then Lalita saw Krishna with his boat. And then she recognized Krishna. She said, Saki, don't be afraid. There's some good fortune. Just see, there's a boatman with a boat by which we can cross. And when Krishna saw the gopis, and he called to them, he said, if all of you want to cross the river, come quickly. I'll take you in my boat to the other side. And so then when the gopis came close, they recognized Krishna. Krishna was sitting there with his face down. Lalita asked him, why are you sitting like this, sir? And Krishna then said, I want some attara. Attara has different meanings. One meaning is a scented, some like scented oil. And because of that desire, I'm sitting like this. And Lalita said, so we'll go to the person who makes scented oil. We'll get some for you. And Krishna smiled. He said, no, I'm not asking for that. I'm asking for attara. Attara also means that the fare, the money to charge to cross over in the boat. And Vishaka then spoke up and said, this boat is broken. It's an old, nasty boat. You shouldn't charge us anything. Instead, you should give us money to put our feet on this broken boat. So Radharani was listening to all this. She was so absorbed looking at the face of Krishna, she couldn't quite hear exactly what was being said. And she was very distracted. And finally she asked her, she said, Saki, what price is he asking? And then Krishna spoke up. He said, to get on my boat, someone has to give gold according to the same weight of their body. And Lalita said, you're getting so much money here every day, charging with gold. So then why do we see you every day taking the cows in the forest? And Krishna explains, taking care of the cows, I don't do that for earning money. I get some religious piety from that. And Lalita said, oh, you're such a religious person. And Krishna told her, then you just stop all this tricky kind of talks and just get on the boat. So they Radharani entered first onto the boat, and then all the gopis. And Krishna began to row a little ways, and then the boat began to shake. And all the gopis became afraid, and they said, why is the boat shaking? And Krishna replied, he said, my boat's never shaken before. I know the reason why is because my boat has never taken so many unchaste ladies in it. And Vishaka said, Krishna, who is an unchaste lady? And Krishna said, someone who loves another man. And Vishaka said, even while we're sleeping or waking, we never look at other men. So how can you call us unchaste? And Govinda Krishna, he said that you're very intelligent. By your own words, you prove that you're not chaste. Because the Shastra speaks about the Supreme Purush. And if you serve him with your body, mind, and words, then my body wouldn't shake. And Vishaka said, we're sincerely serving the Param Purush. Krishna said that, then to reply to Vishaka, he said that if you're really sincerely doing that, then you should, here I am, I'm the Param Purush, you should come and give me a hug. Huh? And the boat won't be steady if there's no hugs. And Lalita, she smiled. She said, okay, we know that you're the Param Purush. But we don't want to go to the other side of the river with you. So you should let us out of our boat. And Krishna says, no, you put your feet in my boat, so you have to pay the fare. And if you can prove that you're actually chaste, then I'll take you to the other side without charging anything. Now, hearing all this, Radharani listening, she told her Sakis, we didn't think about all these things before getting on the boat. Now we have so many problems. The river's really high. We can't go to the other side easily. But this boatman is a very restless rascal. We don't know what's going to happen to us. If somebody sees us with this boatman, we're going to get a bad name. And Lita said, don't worry, it's okay. We can cross over the river. We'll give this boatman some jewels from your necklace. And Krishna said, Tatastu. So if you give me Radharani's jewels, then you can cross over. Lita said, okay, so it's settled. Now you take us to the other side. And then Krishna started moving the boat, rowing the boat. But by his desire, the boat didn't move an inch. And then Krishna said, my dear, beautiful girls, I don't know what it is. Somehow my boat has some problem. I can't move it. I think this boat's not going to move unless you sing. And if you sing, then the boat will move. And Radharani said, no. Chaste ladies don't sing in front of another man. Better we jump into the river and drown ourselves. We can't sing in front of you. And then Krishna, he turned to Lalita and Vishaka and said, you should convince your friend, what's the problem? Why get some shame over such an insignificant thing? And Vishaka told Radharani, hey, life is precious, so let's just sing this one time. So then the gopis, they all covered their faces and they began to sing. Madhusuna he jai. Madhusudana he jaya deva pati vipade pari pidita loka kadate tavanama sumangala gana kori ati gora babasvudi jaritari. Madhusudana he jaya deva pati. All glories to Madhusudan. They're glorifying Krishna. He's the Lord of the Devas. Vipada paripidita lokagati. In this world, everybody has some vipada, some dangers, some problems. And so, Tavanama Sumangala Gana Kori. We're singing your name, your auspicious name, so that Ati Gora Bhavasvudi Jaritara, that very terrible Gora Bhavasvudi, that terrible ocean of material existence, we can cross over. We're singing your name. Sugabira Nari Salile Padiya Tavanama Japi Bhakti Koriya Karuna Moya Chahi Kripa Dradramane Kara Prada Nadi Jala Bhakta Jani. And they say that we're going across this nadi, this river, and we've fallen into the deep water. And so what are we doing? Tava Nama Japi Bhakti Korea. With devotion, with bhakti, we're doing japa of your names. Kuruna Moya Chahi Kripa Dradramani. So please look at us with mercy. Kora, Para, Nadi Jala, Bhakta Jani. Take us to the other side with your devotees. So when he heard the song sung by the gopis, Krishna was very pleased. And all of a sudden, without him even moving, the boat just started moving automatically. And then Krishna told Lalita, he says, so now you should give me the fare you promised. And Vishaka said, hey, what is this? We called out the name of Madhusudan. And by the mercy of Madhusudan, we'll cross over by that mercy. And still you're asking some money from us? Well, you don't have any shame. And Krishna said, hey, listen, I'm Madhusudan. By singing my name, you cross the river, so why don't you give me some money? And Lalita said, so you're saying you're Madhusudan, you're Atmaram, you're the god of the Devas, but you're enjoying other men's wives. So how can you say that you're rescuing everyone from the ocean of material existence, but you won't take us across this little river? So then how can you be known as Narayan? Krishna said, okay, okay. And in that case, I don't want to be known as Narayan. Forget it. But listen, you rode here in my boat. So you have to give me the fare. I had to do so much work and things, so you should give me twice the fee. And the only reason you've escaped is because you're singing for me. And Lalita said, okay, okay, we'll give you, we agreed on a price, so you be steady with your boat and let us off now. So then Krishna take him to the other side, and he said, so you get down carefully. And the first persons to get down should be the persons who get off last. And so everybody got off, and then Radharani was left there. And as she's about to get off, Krishna suddenly pushed the boat in the middle of the river. And Krishna and Radharani said, what are you doing? Leaving everyone else, and only keeping me. And Krishna said, no, there's nothing wrong with that. You're the price for the boat ride. You're the fee. So we want to cross over the ocean of material existence. And the price to pay is Srimati Radharani. The price to pay is Bhakti Devi. That's the price. Radharani, she said, but my gems were promised for the fair. So why are you playing? And Krishna said, I don't want any gems. I want you. And anyway, Lalita gave her permission. So why are you quarreling? And Lalita was standing on the bank listening. She said, it's true. So you be together. We'll see you later. And Lalita and the gopis left Radha and Krishna alone. And then Krishna took his boat near the bank in the forest in a private place, and they sat under a tree. Tabeshi Radhika Prema, Tabeshi Radhika Prema, Rase Adra Mana, Kori Chena Banamali Prati Nivedana. Then with great love, great rasa and love, Srimati Radharani, she said, hey, Banamali, hey, Krishna, Pranabandhu tumi, Brajabasira Parana tumi, Bhini Tahadira Gati Nahi Ana. That you're the heart, you're the life, you're the friend of my life, you're the heart of the Brijbasis. The Brijbasis can't do anything without you. And now what's going on? Say tumi amara lagi gate bahi tari. Mani mani bhavi iha ami lagi mari. You're rowing this boat, you're doing this work for me, and I feel so much shame because of that. But you should know, tomara dekite, asa kore katanari. All the naris, all the ladies, they all have this asa, this desire. They want to see you. So say to me, dekite mori haichena kandari. And you become the boatman. So you do this thing for me. I want you to give me one benediction that that you promise me that everyone who wants to cross over material existence, if they chant your holy name, then they'll be able to easily do that. And Krishna told Srimati Radharani to test her, so be it. So this is, I think, a very good purport to this stanza from Narottam Das Thakur, Jugala Charana Priti Parama Ananda Tati Prati Prema Moya Parabhande. Krishna Nama Radha Nama Upasana Rasudama Charane Padiye Paranande. In great ecstasy, I'll develop intense love for the youthful couple Radha Krishna, and here the glorious topics of their loving affairs. Worshipping and chanting the holy names of Radha and Krishna is the abode of all transcendental mellows. All fall at their lotus feet in ecstasy. So I'm going to go ahead and stop there. I'm going to read a few different comments. Sri Gopal Prabhu has commented, as a Kanishta and practicing devotee, when we give some classes to newcomers who want to know the truth about Radha Krishna, because they're so misinformed about it, so should we say to them the divine couple got married as mentioned in Garga Samhita? Did Srila Prabhupada ever mention in any of his lectures and commentaries about Radha Krishna's marriage as per Garga Samhita? Garga Samhita, and also I think in Brahma Vivarta Purana is mentioned, and there's also a local tradition about that in Braj. To my knowledge, I never saw Srila Prabhupada do that. Mention that direct thing. Generally though, Srila Prabhupada, although I don't recall Prabhupada speaking about how Radharani was the wife of Krishna, but Prabhupada, when he was speaking to new people, he would say that Radharani is a female aspect of God. or the Shakti, the energy of the Lord. He would speak in that way. So that's generally what I do, and I don't go so much into the Garga Samhita thing, because also if they start reading our books, they're going to become very confused because we don't find any description about the marriage, although it's there in Garga Samhita and that. Okay, anybody else want to make offer any reflections or comments, questions, or anything? Otherwise, we'll go ahead and stop. Bhakti Dorothea, Hare Krishna.
Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you very much for this katha. It's just very beautiful, and so when you specified about tattva, then you said what was really helpful for me, that it describes the actual state of affairs of reality, and different words you used also for tattva, and I grasped was that it seemed to be also the
You're kind of going in
intention
and
of
out. It's a
a
little hard to hear
pastime.
you.
Oh, it's the internet connection. Okay,
Yeah.
I can repeat. So you specified also that, at least I heard, that tattva is also the intention of a pastime. Would you like to
Tatparja means the intention of the
speak
pastime.
more about this?
It's really hard for me to hear what you're saying.
Oh,
Tattva
okay,
means
thank you.
the truth. This is the fact of things. Tatya means what is the fact, what is the purport of that, something which can be given some evidence for. Tatya and tattva are very similar. And lila-katha means the intention or the purpose of the purport of that pastime, which Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains in Chaitanya Siksamrita about the nimitic leelas. He gives some purport to them.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Hare Krishna. Lila Purushottam Prabhu, can we get to see your smiling face? Are you still with your Guru Maharaj?
No, I'm back in Czech. Today morning we arrived.
How is Maharaj doing?
Was very well, actually. Actually, I was surprised he was much better than what I was hearing. So for me, it was actually great
I'm
joy
sure
to
that when he saw
see
you, he felt so happy getting to see you again that it made his health better also. It was. I was so glad I could spend something. I was so much wishing that I could go with you to Sweden or something to see him. Now he's in Croatia. Is he still there in Croatia? Yes, he's gonna stay a little longer. And then we are looking for a possibility to have someone for him who could help him to go for the treatment to Govardhaneko village first for 3 weeks. That should happen like later in November. Until that, then we will be looking for someone who could accompany him. And what about,
yeah. Yeah, what you want?
I was going to ask about Mayapur.
Mayapur would be from there. They would go to Mayapur. He's gonna go with his dear godbrother from Almik Aristaha Prabhu. So they're gonna go together, but they definitely need assistance. So they can't go on themselves. So that's what's on the plate now for us to
That's beautiful. That's a wonderful opportunity for very intimate service. That service which is the most needed is the most appreciated. Yes, that's a wonderful thing. Please keep me informed. We may be our situation is not clear, but if we go to India, I would love to go to Mayapur and get his darshan, hopefully a little association.
Yeah, I will.
Okay, I'm sorry I interrupted you. You had some comment, and you have some question or reflection or something.
There was this comment was in answer to or reaction actually to that question by how was his name? Vishweshwar Gopal? Did I get it right?
Yeah, Vishweshwar Gopal.
Okay. So that came to my mind that in Gopal Champa there is quite a strategy by Jiva Goswami where he presented Bhakti-avada for Radha and Krishna to a certain degree to protect the sampradaya and unnecessary attacks on
yeah, and Lalita Madhav also it presents something about how Krishna marries Rukmini and Chandravali's Rukmini as a whole thing.
I love how cleverly Jiva Goswami put it. Like he used that strategy to feed. He himself claims that I wrote certain things to please certain audience, but I don't agree myself with whatever is not in the conclusions of Rupa Goswami, which was obviously Bhakti-avada. So
yeah,
brilliant.
For people who just want to understand things just by reading a book, they're going to be cheated every time. And Srila Prabhupada understood that, and that's why he didn't have the devotees just sitting down and reading Govinda Lilamrita. He said, go out in Harinam, go out in book distribution, distribute prasadam, do services, and you'll realize these things by pleasing Guru. But if we just sit and just try to read something, we get some entertainment, but we may not get to proper understanding. It may not come to our heart.
Or the attitude to understand the thing. Yeah, and then I wanted to because I love that's kind of my my favorite topic to discuss, like whether or not or how to discuss the Radha Krishna pastimes. It always boils down to Vikritam Rajaladin. But what came to my mind contemplating this topic today, that if we would take this statement from Srinath's favorite verse of Gaudiya Vaishnava, Srimad Bhagavatam Pramanam Amalam Prema Pumartha Mahan. So if we take that Bhagavatam is himself supposed to be the Param Praman, that if we just look at the sequence of the Rasa Panchadhyaya and how the last chapter develops, actually, we can see the scenario for us to be followed, actually. Because Shukadeva Goswami gave the whole description of the intimate pastimes of Radha and Krishna. And then, okay, there comes the Maharaj Parikshit with the doubt. And we get the explanation, especially from Vishwanath Chakravarti's Tika, that Maharaj Parikshit knew that all the different adhikaris were present at the moment. There were not just pure devotees listening. And that's our case. That's what we discussed. Like, it shouldn't be discussed publicly. That's the greatest fear of everyone. And we inherited from Srila Prabhupada, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. Definitely, we don't argue with that. But this scenario, what happens there, can help us so much, because it's very interesting, actually, that the one who hears actually protects the katha. It is so wonderful that Maharaj Parikshit is asking actually the question, like, was it proper from Krishna? And then he gives the suggestion to Shukadeva Goswami to really give some lila-katha, to give some, which is actually, in a way, if we study these few verses that Shukadeva Goswami deals with it, it's just very concise, very condensed, like very essential, hitting the points, like you cannot do what the great man is doing. First part, what he's answering, then he's answering this, what you quoted, this 36th verse, that if Krishna takes the human form and engages in the pastimes for the benefit of those who can listen about the pastimes. It's another part of that answer, and it culminates with that Vikriditam verse. So I was thinking, like, why not look on that like this? Because Srila Prabhupada, you mentioned it so many times, Srila Prabhupada wanted to publish Krishna book and wanted us to distribute it widely. So we can't really say that this katha is forbidden and it cannot be shared. So the only discussion is in what way it should be shared, and the scenario is depicted in the Bhagavatam itself, actually. Like, okay, we can hear the rasa katha, but it should be supported with the proper, as you mentioned, you went into great detail actually with lila-katha, lila-katha, and tatparya. So all three levels, but especially like that, there should be siddhanta, there should be proper understanding, and we can see it directly from Bhagavatam. And we shouldn't be discouraged, especially that's maybe my hard point. We shouldn't be discouraged from sharing the katha at all. Like it's forbidden. It's you know, like that. We shouldn't accept this misconception, misconclusion. So that these were my thoughts. Like especially, I was struck today with like just seeing this scenario of Bhagavatam itself, seeing as a working model for us in what way to share the topics of Radha and Krishna, even with the public, actually, because that's what happens there. If you have any thoughts on it,
Bhaktivinoda Thakur, that statement in Chaitanya Siksamrita, I think is really, really good. Sujati yasya snigdha sad gosti vyatita rasalapa koribinna. That he describes something, he's indirectly saying, the sentence is saying, koribinna, don't do this. But indirectly, he's also giving a positive affirmation. And Sujati yasya snigdha sad gosti, that you should hear about topics in a sadgosti amongst saintly persons who are intimate with you and who are snigdha, who are affectionate to you. That's an important thing. What else are we going to do? My Guru Maharaj, he used to say that these things should be, the body should know that we have these things in Srila Prabhupada's mission. And that's why I want to speak these things also.
And that's another point what I really appreciated. I don't remember whom you were quoting, but that's brilliant. Probably it is also part of Bhaktivinoda's quote, that the disciple should be instructed on these matters in a personal, intimate relationship with his spiritual master. He shouldn't. It's probably not a topic for a Handal discussion that we can agree on. but then my question is, like being, let's say, a bit passionate about it regarding our movement, because sometimes our movement is being accused that, oh, you're just a Vaidhi bhaktas, and to get something higher you have to go somewhere else, and then we don't like to do these things. But on the other hand, my question is this really going on? Are there devotees who are personally guided on that level of bhajan by their spiritual master? Either diksha or shiksha. I don't care in that regard.
That's an interesting question. I think if you wrote on Facebook or on Dandavats and ask, and please tell us who's qualified for this and who's getting this kind of thing, I don't think you're going to hear anything from anybody. And we might conclude from that, oh, it's not going on. but it doesn't mean that at all. My Guru Maharaj
Yeah.
was hearing very deep things from Srila Prabhupada. He had very deep things. We see Radha Govinda Maharaj is also speaking some very deep things to certain persons, but the nature of that, the topic is that people want to hide it if they have that thing.
Yeah. That's true.
There's been some
But at
wonderful
least
stories.
there should be that much awareness on the disciple's side, that when he finds in his heart that eagerness, that impetus to ask these things, that is his legal right in a relationship.
From my side, I think it's really important that we just do what Srila Prabhupada gave us and focus on the simple things of book distribution and Harinam and prasadam distribution and that. But at the same time, as we become a little more mature in bhakti, that we should hear, we should know such things exist. And by hearing in a proper way, Krama Sudha Shravana Dasa, with faith, as Bhaktivinoda explains in Jaiva Dharma, then we hear in a proper sequence things, then Vikriti Tam Vajavudu Beridam Cha Vishnu, then we'll get that topmost bhakti and we'll become dear, we'll become very sober, and all the nasty things in the heart will go away. That applies. But it's not something just casually for devotees. Although Prabhupada gave us a nectar of instruction, and if you look in Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's so many things from Govinda Lilamrita there, and some very, very intimate things. In fact, I've heard Srila Bhaktisiddhanta didn't appreciate devotees, or forbade the devotees or something from reading from Chaitanya Charitamrita. Rather, they were reading from Chaitanya Bhagavat, which doesn't give so much intimate Radha Krishna things as Chaitanya Charitamrita does. But this is our life. If we don't know that these things exist, but it doesn't mean that, as I've seen some devotees do, we just start imagine that we're very advanced and we start reading these things more than we read Bhagavad Gita, more than we read Isopanishad or other books. And we're living in some kind of fantasy. And then what often happens is they just end up falling down. And then they become discouraged because they think, oh, at first they're thinking, I'm so advanced because, see, I have some ruchi, I have some attraction for these stories. But maybe really, honestly, it's just some entertainment for us. And that's all that it really is. And it's nice entertainment. And if we're hearing Krama Sudha Shravana Dasa, then there's some benefit from that. But if we're hearing that and we start focusing on that more instead of also focusing on Vaidhi Bhakti, then eventually we may fall down. If we fall down at that point, then what often happens is we lose faith in the process.
Yeah.
This doesn't work. See, yeah. I was so advanced that I started reading Govinda Lilamrita and having a taste for it, and Krishna Bhavanamrita and this and that. And then just see, it just doesn't work. And we give it up and we go away. So it's very important that we follow the process and we're under guidance.
But yeah, that's what comes immediately to my mind, that even regarding such a things as reading and hearing in a sense, reading being a part of our Shravana, it should be properly guided on a personal level, because it's not that Guru has 1,000 disciples and all of them has the same adhikar. So Guru sits on the Vyasa and says, nobody reads anything else than Prabhupada's books. It just won't work like that, I guess. I hope it won't work like that.
Or maybe he says it on the Vyasa. I remember once before class, someone asked Guru Maharaj a question. We were walking with him, just 2 or 3 of us. And Guru Maharaj gave an answer. Oh, that's a very nice answer. After the class, in front of 100 devotees, coincidentally, someone asked the exact same question, only in front of 100 or so devotees, and Guru Maharaj gave a different answer. So sometimes we may say in front of everybody, no, but you shouldn't read anything except for Prabhupada's books. Because who are we speaking to? We should look and see the audience also. We're speaking to a large group of devotees. But we have to have some intimate sangha also. And it's not the devotees to hear these things. They have to go to the Gaudiya Math, or more likely to the Babajis or something. We also have this in ISKCON. but it's not something that we should advertise and promote. I feel very uncomfortable. I don't like to post things about such leelas as this. I'm a little brave the last few sessions because we're reading Narottam Das Thakur and he's speaking directly about these things. I went ahead and spoke some pastimes. But I know this is also going on YouTube and different things. But at the same time, I'm not so much worried about it because as Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami explains in Adi Lila chapter 3, he says, oh my gosh, I can't speak these things. People are not qualified. And then he thinks about it for a moment. He says, actually, we can do it because the subjects protect themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
They protect themselves and people are just not interested in it. I found dealing with Facebook, which is a good indication of dealing with lots of people in a big public forum, that if I post, if I say some of the same things we're saying in this class and I write it down, especially in a short way, then people will become very disturbed and I'll get all kinds of people attacking me. You can't. But if I post a link to a lecture, an audio video lecture, nobody pays attention to it except people have a little qualification. People have a little bit of faith. So it protects itself. It's not a problem.
Okay, thank you. I won't take.
Thank you, Prabhuji. I'm sorry. I wanted some Sangha with you, Guru Maharaj. I appreciate him so much. He's just such a wonderful, wonderful, exalted personality. You're very fortunate. I'm so delighted you got to go.
Yeah, I'm also. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Lila Purushottam Prabhu and Gorni Tai Prabhu. Do you want to comment something? You're in the Brahmacharya ashram in Budapest? Where are you?
Krishna Valley.
Oh.
Or near to Krishna Valley, Peter's home.
You're in Peter's place. Wow.
Yeah. You don't see it?
Let's see. Yeah, you're sitting at the desk there.
Yeah.
I know that room very well.
Yeah, you know that.
We stayed there many times. Good internet connection.
I took it like
Prashadam. You probably have a better internet connection than Orsi has. Excuse me, than Dorothea has.
I hope. But sometimes it's also strange, the Wi-Fi.
So you had something you wanted to share?
Yeah, I would like to connect to Lila Purushottam Prabhu's topic, which you just
good.
Discussed. It's very true that without guidance and without regular guidance, we cannot have regular listening in this type of deep topics. And when we have other services, also they don't allow us to become absorbed in this topic. We can hear about, as you say, we have to know, but if we have other service, like giving regular class to other devotees, I don't think it's the time for someone who really want to go deeply and safely in these topics. As you mentioned that, and as I saw one proof from Chaitanya Charitamrita, when Advaita Acharya sent a very specific letter to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he quietly smiled. That is his order, he said. Then he felt silent. So he showed the example. He went into this deep mood after he was ordered by his Shiksha Guru, Advaita Acharya. That's my understanding. Do you want to comment that?
When Mahaprabhu met Roy Ramananda on the bank of the Godavari River, he became ecstatic. Wow, this is someone I can hear about Radha Krishna Lila from, and he embraced him. And then all of a sudden he stopped. And he looked around and he saw these Brahmins there. And they were all looking at him like, what's going on here? This Roy Ramananda is a Sudra, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is a sannyasi Brahmin, and he's embracing him with ecstasy. This is something strange. And Mahaprabhu saw these people don't have qualification. So that's such an important principle. And I appreciate your point. You're saying that when we do our normal services, when we're cooking or when we're cleaning the temple or doing this or that, maybe we can't, it's hard to think about these things. But if we come to the proper platform of Smarna Dasa, when it comes in a natural way, that's a different thing. The examples given there's a beautiful story in the Brihanaradiya Purana that once Narad Muni came to see Lord Vishnu. And Narada, there's a lot of stories in the Puranas about Narada's pride. And this is one such story. He had this pride that I'm the best devotee. And he went to the Lord and he said, please tell me who is the best Vaishnava, the best devotee. And he's expecting Lord Vishnu is going to say, you are Narada. And Lord Vishnu said, actually, it's this householder with 5 kids on the earth planet. He's my best devotee. And Narad Muni said, really? Wow. And Lord Vishnu said, so you should go there. So Narad Muni took an invisible form and he went there. And on the advice of Lord Vishnu, he spent the day with that household. And he was very shocked to see what was going on. The guy didn't get up from Mangal Artik. Maybe he woke up at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, and he got up. There's no Mangal Artik. He didn't shed any japa. He just got up and took care of his children, helped his wife with cooking and cleaning and things. And then he went out to the fields and he was working all day. And and at the end of the day, he came home and ate something and took rest. No Mangal Artik, no Sundar Artik, no kirtan, no dancing, no japa, no nothing. And Narad Muni's watching all this and he's thinking, how is this guy? I go to Mangal Artik every day. I chant my japa every day. How is this guy the best devotee and I'm not? And so he went back to Lord Vishnu, like, look, what are you telling me? And Lord Vishnu explained to him, he asked Narad Muni a question. He says, during the day, how many times did you think of me? And Narad Muni said, well, tell you the truth, I was so busy watching this guy, and this guy was so busy with so many different, I didn't even think of you once. And then Lord Vishnu said, yes, but he was thinking of me the whole day. He was constantly absorbed in me. So that's the platform of Smarna Dasa where memory comes to us in a natural way. And then whatever we're doing, the gopis are also, they're collecting gobar, they're milking cows, they're doing different things. They're not going to the temple every day and just dancing in ecstasy, whatever. They're hearing and chanting about Krishna. But they're also doing so many mundane things. But when they're doing those things, they're not mundane things. They're singing and speaking about Krishna in a natural way. And that's what we should be doing. We told the story in our last session about one ISKCON devotee who left ISKCON and went to a elevated Babaji, supposedly, at Radhakund, and said, Maharaj, please tell me what is my Ekadas Bhav, what is my form in the spiritual world, and what do I do in that? And he told him, well, that's a big thing. He says, you go ahead right now and you wash the dishes and clean the temple and collect firewood. And for like over a year, he was just doing all this hard work. And after a year, he got really fed up. What's going on, man? He hasn't taught me my Ekadas Bhav. So he went back to the Babaji and said, come on, when are you going to? And the Babaji became angry with him. And said, don't you know, I've been engaging you in the activities of the gopis for this whole year, and you're not paying attention to it. So if we think about book distribution, if we think about Harinam in a proper way, we think about taking care of the cows, we think about cooking for the deities, we think about cooking for the devotees. If we think about it in a proper way, we can see these are all activities the gopis are also doing. And if we do it in the right consciousness, it makes a huge difference. Is that helpful?
Very much, but still, Lord Chaitanya had to decide what kind of mood he is in. And before Advaita Acharya informed him that all the market is now satisfied, then he was always thinking Krishna, but in a different mood, yeah?
Yeah, that was something between Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Advaita Acharya. And Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami clearly presents it that it was something intimate that other devotees couldn't understand. Only Srup Damodar Goswami could understand at that time what was meant. And he explains it for us. that poem that Advaita Acharya sent was to inform Mahaprabhu that now he can go, his presence is no longer needed. That was his personal connection with Advaita Acharya. And Advaita Acharya is Sadashiva. Advaita Acharya, he's Mahavishnu. And his purpose is he wants to see the Yuga Dharma going on. And that's why he's called Krishna, called Vishnu. He always thinks of Mahaprabhu as Krishna. He doesn't think of him so much as Radha Krishna. Sometimes as Gopishwar Mahadev, which is also an aspect of Advaita Acharya. He has some understanding of that. But he's thinking of him more in terms of the Yuga Dharma. And now that Yuga Dharma is finished. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came for an internal reason and an external reason. His external reason was to establish a Yuga Dharma. His internal purpose was to taste the mood of Srimati Radharani. And he was able to do that in connection with Srup Damodar and Roy Ramananda. He was able to do that. And he was able, in Jagannath Puri, just near Tota Gopinath, he was able to taste the mood of being a Manjari when he saw Chatak Parvika's Govardhan Hill and that. So,
May
is
I
that helpful,
mention
Ganesh?
another
Yeah,
little
sure.
example?
Uh-huh.
Which you told that this householder was always thinking of Krishna. And I remember once you mentioned one person who got some prasadam from his wife. And it was rice, very nice white rice in the mid, and then some spinach around, and then one tulsi leaves in the mid. And the man become ecstatic and he couldn't move for. That's an example how we see the prasadam, then we are on the stage.
Yeah. So that person, that's an internal thing. And that story, that's Dasya Bauri. It's a wonderful story from Orissa. He was experiencing some internal thing. We can't see that. We can't understand that. He's hiding that. And that's a symptom of a great personality. And moreover, Narottam Das Thakur, as we elaborated very at length in our recent issue of Bindu about hide your bhajan, Narottam Das Thakur says that this is very important, that we should hide our bhajan, we should hide our feelings. And that's why I mentioned Lila Purushottam, that if you put an advertisement out, if you went around into the temple and started asking everybody, are you such an intimate person with your Guru Maharaj and this and that, you're going to maybe find 0 persons, because it's not something that should be advertised. And if somebody's actually qualified, they'll know that. You probably will find a few persons who say, no, I'm chanting 64 rounds a day, and I'm reading Govinda Lilamrita, and I'm qualified. And they may be the most unqualified person.
Yeah, I think that if we had our desire is really deepened and we are really crying for guidance, that will appear without any Twitter or Facebook. But if you don't have this desire, naturally, that will not come. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prabhuji. This in that same Ujjvala Rasagya, she comments here too that Twitter created, what did she say? Twitter created limited character kata, and those attracted to it are very easily disturbed. It's the nature of this world today. People, they can't, with our Bindu magazine, I find that we have to keep things pretty short, and we have to have lots of pictures. Otherwise, people can't digest it. Orsi, you have something you want to share?
Yes, Hare Krishna. I would like slightly shift the topic because I have a question. One of your session mentioned that there are 3 types of communities based on the what Samhita. I forgot the first part. The Samhita, I don't know what kind of Samhita, I just forgot. And on the Srimad Bhagavatam and the community based on the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And community based on Brahma Samhita.
Garga Samhita. I don't know. I'm not, this is not.
I don't know. That's it's all about
Manu Samhita, probably.
Manu Samhita, that's it. Thank you. Thank you, Lila Purushottam Prabhu.
Big
I
difference.
just forgot and mixed. So, Manu Samhita, yes.
Okay. Yeah.
So a community based on Manu Samhita is all about following the law, regulations, and so on. And the community based on Srimad Bhagavatam is actually a community where Krishna is naturally in the center, and a community based on Chaitanya Charitamrita, and that community there is in the center there is the love of Krishna. And
Wow.
I was wondering.
I don't remember that. That sounds really
No,
cool.
really?
It makes sense.
This is from you, from a
Okay.
Gambira session.
All right.
Okay, so this and I was thinking that what's the difference actually between the two later community, because for me it seems that however Krishna is in the center on a community based on the Srimad Bhagavatam, but based on love for Krishna, and so I cannot distinguish so sharply between the two type of communities. However, that when you explain that, it seems very logical. But later,
So your question is, can I explain what is the difference between a community based on the Bhagavatam and a community based on Chaitanya
Yes.
Charitamrita?
Yes.
Okay, I don't remember that comment. It sounds like kind of a cool comment, actually. It makes sense in some ways, at least. I don't know a reference from that from our acharyas, and I'm a little shy about it. But of course, it's an observation, because there's a lot of persons who build communities based on Manasamhita and rules and regulations, and you're going to go to hell. And if someone is a Sudra and they give instructions to a Brahmin, and you're supposed to pour molten lead down their throat and kill them, and they're not allowed to do that, and it's a really, really heavy thing. That's a society based on rules and regulations. And when we talk about these communities, I found myself when I go places, I remember going one place in France, and there was one Prabhupada disciple who was coming to my classes, and one day he gave me a hug before the class, and I could really smell something. And I asked some devotees afterwards about him. They said, oh, he likes to drink alcohol and he smokes marijuana and things. And so in the next class, I was talking to devotees, and I could see some of them had some propensity toward that. And I said, that's okay. You have your community based on that. And you come together because you don't want to associate with non-devotees who like to do that. I said, but I don't know if I'm going to come to your community. And so according to the particular mood of the devotees, you'll say certain things. And that's a qualified preacher. We should speak according to the people we're talking to. So some people need to hear Manasamhita. Some people will be ready to hear Bhagavatam. At the time of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Bhagavatam was very popular, and he was hearing the Bhagavatam, but he later commented that he couldn't really understand it. And as we've often said, that until Chaitanya Charitamrita came, who could understand the Bhagavatam? Who could understand how Krishna left Vrindavan? And if the love of the gopis is the topmost love, which is what we hear in the Bhagavatam, then why did he leave them? And you can give many different fancy answers, but the Bhagavatam doesn't seem to really resolve that or give us an answer until we hear Chaitanya Charitamrita. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, when I heard Chaitanya Charitamrita, then I could understand Srimad Bhagavatam. So Srimad Bhagavatam gives us something more. It gives us topics of Krishna and there's different avatars and things and how we should hear them. And the Bhagavatam is everything. If you only hear the Bhagavatam, that's sufficient. But the Chaitanya Charitamrita is a natural kind of commentary on the Bhagavatam. And as Bhaktivinoda Thakur taught us, unless we also hear Chaitanya Charitamrita, we can't really understand it fully. The Bhagavatam doesn't directly mention the name of Radharani, but there's one verse which begins Aradhanam, speaking about this person who's doing Aradhana. Aradhana means some worship. of Krishna. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Sanatana Goswami, Jiva Goswami, and other acharyas have commented on that verse that this is speaking about Radharani, and that the reason why Shukadeva Goswami didn't speak Radharani's name directly was because he was a follower of Radharani. And some people say, my grandma says, that he's Sri Shukavacha, which means the parrot of Radha. Sri means Srimati Radharani. He's directly Radharani's parrot. And if he would have spoken about Radharani, he would have gone into Bhav for maybe a month. And Maharaj Pariksit only had a week to hear the Bhagavatam. So then he wouldn't have been able to speak that. So he spoke it because he couldn't control himself, but he did it in a covered kind of way. And not everybody can understand that. The Bhagavatam community that I would see, maybe this is, I'm commenting on something you heard that I don't even recall me saying, so it feels a little funny. But the Bhagavatam community I would see is a community which is based upon the principles of the Bhagavatam and worshiping Krishna as the source of all the avatars and hearing Krishna pastimes and things. But Chaitanya Charitamrita goes a step further, and understanding that the purpose of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and understanding Yuga Dharma, chanting the holy names, and Premanam Sankirtan, which is kirtan done in the mood of the gopis for the pleasure of Srimati Radharani. I would understand it that way. And the understanding is, in the Manasamhita kind of community, people think that the goal of everything is to follow Vedic rules and regulations properly. And if I don't do that, I'm going to go to hell. In the Bhagavatam kind of community, to use this analogy, someone says, I have to worship Krishna. But in the Chaitanya Charitamrita community, they understand I have to worship Radha and Krishna. And I want to get Krishna praying. I want to serve Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu because I understand he's Radha Krishna Nahi Anya. He's non-different from Radha Krishna. He's a combined form. That would be my commentary on that thing, which I don't even remember saying. Is that helpful, Arsi?
Yes, thank you very much.
I guess, thank you. I noticed there's a couple of other comments here in the chat. Let me look and see. Subal Sakar Prabhu, Mangal Prabhu had to go. Subal Sakar Prabhu comments, he also has to go. Maybe it's a sign that we should also finish. And Dorothy also has to go. Okay. So I want to encourage everybody to please try to take part every week if you can. I should have said that in the beginning before everybody went, because it helps create a community. And some little personal news. We're here in Hungary for at least another week, more, almost certain 2 weeks at least. After that, I'm thinking we might go to Czech, we might go to Lithuania for a little bit. There's some friends there we want to see and do some katas and things. And then we're not really sure again where we're going to be going. It depends on what happens at the embassy. We may go back to India right away. We may not. We're still and we're still to test the jivas, uncertain what our situation is. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and stop there. And thank you all so much. It's such a nice thing. Oh, I know what else I wanted to mention. Just today we had a discussion with some devotees in India, and they're asking me if I would start a series of classes on Madhurya Kadambini, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Now, I told the Mataji who was asking at Sita Rani, I said that if I do that and I don't tell the devotees in our group about it, I'm going to be in a whole lot of trouble. Lila Purushottam Prabhu will probably never forgive me. I said so. So it's being discussed right now. And I told her that I like small groups. And I gave this group as an example of what I like to do. But just like we're supposed to be giving a talk on Sunday at the Budapest temple. Oh, so I told them I give some Sunday feast lectures. We do stuff like that sometimes. But I prefer to speak these kind of things with small groups. And she said, yeah, Burijan Prabhu had a small group, and he limited it to 50 devotees. And I kind of said, okay, all right, if that's the way it's going to be, something, we'll have to just see. So I don't know that, but that's an open thing. Probably, I told her that 3 days of the week that would be the probably best for me would be Monday, Friday, or Saturday, and we would just do it once a week. And I also told her I don't know how fast we'll go through it. I want to see what the group is like and what they want from me. It's being put on by one of the temples in the Delhi area, and they're going to have a certain mood. I can't have 150 sessions like we've been doing with meeting in Kurukshetra, which I'd like to continue again, by the way. We can't do that. It's going to probably have to be more like, maybe 60 sessions or something is a lot on Madhuri Kadambani. We'll see. Okay, we'll go ahead and stop there. Thank you all so much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Sumabeda Bhakta Binda ki jai, Gaur Premanandi Hari Bo, Pancha Kalpa Darubhis Cha, Kripa Sindhu Bheva Cha.